the silver sword. It's used as a teaching example by botanists.
Wait, silver sword or Iliau?
The
Iliau, yeah.
the silver sword. Iliau is the species is part of a larger group of plants in the aster family that left their homeland of California about 5.2 million years ago and came to the Hawaiian Islands. And this one little descendants of one little single California weed known as California tarweed became 50 species here in the Hawaiian Islands. And the 50 species of different plants in 3 different separate groups of plants, which includes the silver sword, which includes the Dubautia, right? So there are several different groupings of those, and also the Iliau. So originally they're from a little roadside weed, it's called the tarweed, which is a little aster about 1 foot tall. It's a spindly little weed with little dandelion-like flowers. And 5.5 million years ago almost, that little flower decided to go on a little journey. And since it has,
wind decided it was going on a little.
it has little seeds like a dandelion, so it's easily carried by the wind. So the interesting thing is that because it moved from California to the Hawaiian Islands, its ancestry could be very easily traced. And since they kind of calculated how long ago it was just beautiful to follow its development on the different islands. They have the Haleakala silver sword, which is a Maui. They have a relative of that, which when that came to Maui, the big island didn't exist. So once the big island popped out of the ocean, that silver sword seed went over to the big island and colonized there. In the meantime, Kaua'i was busy in its own way. The little tarweed seeds that landed pretty much started growing in all different kind of habitats. And so what happens 5 million years later, we have a plant that have the ancestors are the California tarweed, and little plant has evolved into 50 species. Anything from a sprawling vine to a tree are all from one single plant. And they're all genetically related, and they all have one single ancestor. 5.2 million years. And so the beauty of studying how this happens, how evolution happens, that all of a sudden a single weed turns into this kind of a small tree, right? And I think there's the silver sword Haleakala that are even much taller than this. I don't know how tall they get. But so they're all similar. They're all, most of them that we have here, not all, most of them are sort of a single stalk with like a little bushy crown with the leaves, right? Not all of them, because in Maui, for example, the Haleakala doesn't have a long stem at all. The leaves come straight out of the ground, and then the flower head builds on top of that. So there's all these variations. Like I said, anything from a sprawling vine to a fairly tall tree, all from one single plant in only 5 million years, which is just it's just the cool thing that scientists are studying how it works. And also the flowers themselves, so we don't have a flower here, but maybe you can talk a bit, is that the shape of the flowers has uniquely adapted to the tropical environment, right? Probably pollinated by different type of insects. So what the flowers, if you remember what the flowers look like, they look more like this, a cluster of tiny little whitish flowers. What is missing is the radial flower, the one that we think are the petals that go all around it. They're completely missing. Those are little white puffballs. What's missing are the so-called petals, what we think are petals on the dandelion. That's completely missing. It's like you pick all the stuff off a dandelion and then just have the little ball.
Yeah.
And what happened with these, through evolution, these radial flowers, because what they really are is a flower with one long petal on one side. They're still individual flowers, they're not just petals, but they just kind of disappeared. And all we have now is a little puffball. But it's basically the same thing as the dandelion, just has lost the outer set of flowers. And so the radial flowers are gone. It just, nature decided it didn't need them here in the Hawaiian Islands. That maybe the flowers, being white little balls or whatever, didn't need an extra large petal to attract the attention of insects, right? Somehow nature figured out it didn't need those, and now we don't have them.
Because there's
So
so
just,
many puffballs.
Well, maybe it fit right in with all the other parts. But so that's kind of just a little bit of the evolutionary history of the whole family of asters. They came all in the form of one single plant some 5.2 million years ago. So that's the cool thing about it. Yeah, that's all I wanted to share.